Done.
Okay, so let's begin. So intro to control theory. So let's start with a simple example. Let's say you have an autonomous car and it has a controller. It has a device that controls the speed of the car, and the input is the roads, the traffic, okay, and the output is the speed it's giving. Okay, so the device is controlling the speed of the car, so that is a controller. So what is the controller controlling? It's controlling the car, right? So the car becomes the plant, and input is the roads and all the traffic, what kind of traffic is there and all, and the output is the speed control. Okay, so is it clear? Like this example is clear, right? Hello.
Can we assume input as a
Yes, ma'am.
fuel?
You, yeah, you can assume anything. Like, I was just taking an example. Let's
I mean,
assume.
those are all variables that are used for outputting the speed, right?
Okay. So here, see, we have denoted the plant. Here, in this example, the car is the plant, and input is the roads, the traffic system, or let's say fuel. And YS, XS is those inputs, and YS is the output, that is the speed control which we are getting. So as you can see, we have denoted everything in terms of S, like X, S, G, S, Y, S. So so have you all studied Laplace transform? Like in MAN 001 course, you might have studied. Hello.
Not till now, ma'am, I think.
अच्छा ठीक है कोई बात नहीं if you haven't studied no problem see you can refer to this as this is the S domain. S domain corresponds to continuous system, and there's one more thing called Z transform. So Z transform corresponds to discrete system. Hope you all know the difference between continuous and discrete.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So the first term here is the transfer function. So it's the ratio of output of the system to the input of the system. Okay. So in maths, basically, it's a transfer function is a mathematical function which models the device's output for each possible input. Okay. So as per this, the transfer function of the plant is GS. So GS is output upon input, that is YS upon XS. Clear till here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide. The components of the closed loop control. First component is the plant that I've explained you, let's say the car. Okay. Second is actuator. So can anyone tell what's an actuator?
Just like motor.
DC motor
Check it. DC
Yeah,
motor. Bruceless motor like.
yeah,
converted electrical signal into motion.
yeah, correct.
Yes,
Next.
that's actually an actuator. The motor,
And
and you were talking about DC motor, those are examples of actuator.
Yes, sir.
yeah, it converts electrical energy or say any form of energy into some mechanical force
Motion.
so that it can do motion. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And third is sensor. What is a sensor?
Sensor is a device that
Yeah,
It's
every,
opposite of
We
actuator.
sense something and convert into electrical signals.
yeah,
yes, sir.
correct. Okay. And the fourth component here is the controller. As in that car example, the controller was the device that was controlling the speed of the car. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. See, here we have taken an open loop control system. Here, this is the controller, this is the plant. So input is fed to the controller, then controller processes this input and gives a signal to the plant. This signal, the output of the controller is fed as an input to the plant, and then the plant processes this input and gives the final output. Okay. So do you guys find any error here? Like, is it an effective way?
रिपीट नहीं कर पाएगा ना मैम?
क्या?
It will not
No,
repeat.
it can repeat actually. The input signal is continuous, right? You are receiving the input continuously, so it can repeat always.
Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So why is it not effective? Can anyone tell?
Sorry, ma'am.
Why is the open loop system not effective?
Because it can't repeat process.
No, it can repeat. Why? Why do you think it can't repeat the process? Every time we
Because
get
when
input,
there is
we
no connector that tell this process is complete.
are getting the output, right? So
Yes, ma'am.
There any
We can't
feedback
when
related
to
thing?
stop.
There cannot be a feedback related.
yeah, feedback thing. See here, see the thing with open loop system is that output has no effect on the control action of the input signal. Okay, so it's the output of the whole system is completely dependent, it's blindly dependent on the input. So if suppose there's some error, there's some drift in the input, so it will make an error in the output and it cannot self-correct it, right? The output, we don't know whether the output is right or wrong, so we can't self-correct it. Okay, got this?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's why we use a closed loop control system. Just a second. Why is it not moving? Just a second. So we use a closed loop control system. Here, see, this structure you find, this is the summer. It sums up all the signals, okay? So input is fed to the summer. Here, see, this RT, no, it is the desired output, the output that we want. And this YT, it's the output we are actually getting. Okay, so the difference between the desired output and the actual output will be called the error, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes.
here ET is the error. So ET is equal to, see here there's a plus here, and when it's going
YT minus RT. Like.
yeah, here there's a minus. So ET is equal to RT minus YT. Okay, so the error is fed to the controller. The controller processes it. And gives some signal that is fed to the plant or process, say. Then the plant also processes it and gives the final output. And then the same output is fed as a feedback to the summer. So here there's a chance that if there's some error, then the whole system can self-correct itself. Okay, clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Okay. Now the domain, yeah, this I was talking about the Laplace or the S domain. So it corresponds to the continuous system. Z domain corresponds to the discrete system. Okay, so let's have a look at some input signals. Standard input signal. See, this is the unit step signal. Okay, so for all t greater than equal to 0, its value is 1, and for t less than equal to 0, its value is 0. And this is a ramp function, like a straight line, like slope with 45 degrees. Here, for t greater than equal to 0, its value is t, and for t less than 0, its value is 0. And there's one more signal called impulse signal. Its value is equal to 1 at t is equal to 0, and 0 for all values of t other than 0. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Now let's have a look at the PID controller. See, there are various types of controller. Now you have got the idea, right? What's a controller? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So there are various types of controller, like the lead lag block, the deadbeat controller, but the most famous one is the PID controller. We generally use this only. So PID means proportional control, integral control, derivative control. Okay. Now let's have a look at them one by one. First is the proportional controller. So as the name suggests, proportional. Okay, so it's proportional to the error term. Okay, and it has some constant Kp, and that multiplied with the error term gives the output. Like Kp into error is the output of the proportional control. Okay, but there's some problem with this controller that it always maintains a steady state error. Though it provides for a stable operation, but it always maintains a steady state error. Can anyone tell why it always maintains a steady state error?
If the input is steady, then it is proportional to the input.
What?
The input is steady, then it will be proportional to the input.
No, see, let's have a look at the graph. You'll understand it better. So one more thing, in this PID controller, we define two variables. First is the set point, second is the process variable. So that RT, the desired output, is the set point, and YT, the actual output which we are getting, it's the process variable. So see here, the set point is 1. So can anyone tell what kind of signal are we using here?
Impulse.
Impulse? How?
Oh no, it will be step. Impulse will
What?
be one step.
Yeah, unit step. We are using the unit step signal here. It's 1 for all t greater than 0, right? See, its value is 1. Okay. So let's understand it by the graph. Suppose the set point is here, right? At 1. At t is equal to 0, the set point is 1. And at t is equal to 0, the process variable is 0. Okay. So the error is what? Set point minus process variable, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Huh. So it's a very large, it's a very huge number. It will be a huge number, see, like 1. And that too, when multiplied with Kp, it will lead to a larger number. So the graph kinds of overshoots, okay? And then suppose if it reaches here after overshooting. Now can anyone tell what's the error here, positive or negative?
The error will be negative.
Yeah, error is set point minus process variable, okay? So the error is negative. But the magnitude of the error has decreased a bit, and that too multiplied with Kp. So it will lead to a larger value, but not that large that it will come to the bottom. So it will shift a bit here, okay? Now what's the error? It's positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive, yes. So it will go up. Similarly, doing the steps, it will always go up. So, and every time here, the error is not, it's close to 0. Like the error will keep on decreasing. It will be close to 0, but not actually 0. And that too, when multiplied with Kp, it will result in some significant number. So the steady state error is there. Got this? Not this much, like in this graph, the error is quite huge. The steady state error is quite huge, not that much, it's close to the steady state. Okay, got this?
Ma'am, what is the blue color is denoting the output now?
Blue color is process variable, that YT thing.
Okay.
Real output like.
Yeah. Okay.
Ma'am, what are these three variables Kp,
Yeah.
Ki, and Kd?
I'll tell. Like I told you, the Kp, proportional controller, has some constant Kp. Like, see, proportional, what do you mean by proportional? It's proportional to something. Okay. So the proportional controller is proportional to the error.
Error. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So after removing the proportionality, we get some constant Kp. So this is the constant. Okay, proportionality constant.
Okay.
Okay.
So proportional controller is clear, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
You guys understand, right, why it is fluctuating?
Because of input discrepancy.
No, not because of input discrepancy. Let me tell you. It's because, let's say, the signal of the unit step function started at 0 seconds. All right. Uh, Now, because our always our the controller it is made up of some kind of capacitance, resistance, and inductance materials only, right? So it will take some time for the output to reach to the level of the input because it takes time for capacitors to charge, right?
Yes, sir.
So initially the output would be 0. So here error would be exactly equal to 1.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
now the controller will see there is an error of 1 unit. So I will add a correction of Kp multiplied by error, that is 5 units, to my output. All right.
Correction will be proportional to the error, sir.
Yes, because it that's why it is named proportional controller, right?
Yes, sir.
So the correction would be equal to Kp multiplied by error. So it will be huge correction, right? So the graph is quite steep because correction is quite large. So as the time moves on, your output signal will increase and the correction will continue to decrease, but it's still positive. So it is still increasing. When you reach output equal to 1, so at that point your error would be 0. So correction would be 0,
Yes, sir.
right? But you have already added a lot of correction in the previous times, right? In the past you have added a lot of correction, so the output will continue to shoot up, and the controller will try to now the error will be negative and controller will try to like decrease the output
Yes,
to
sir.
maintain 0 error. So uh, that's why again it comes down, then again when it reaches 0 error, but a correction has already been added previously to like keep the output down, so it will undershoot. This effect creates these kind of fluctuations, and it will continue like in theory it will continue infinitely, these fluctuations.
But as the time passes, it will the fluctuation will decrease. It will
Yes,
go
these
like.
will decrease, but in theory they will continue indefinitely, these fluctuations.
Mhm.
Is it clear now?
Yes, ma'am.
So practically there would be a point where the fluctuation is negligible.
Yeah, there will.
Yes, obviously that's why the graph is almost straight line after some time.
Yeah, see, you can see here. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, so let's go. So as you can see, this proportional controller always maintains some steady state error. So to remove this, we use an integral controller too. So what do you mean by integration? Summing up, right? So integral control, it sums up the error over time. And we sort of assume it that the sum of the total error is always 0. Like sometimes it's going up, sometimes it's going down. So it's always 0. So it keeps on adding this integral control. It keeps on adding the error until the process variable has reached the steady state. Okay. Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So it keeps on summing up the error till the point it reaches the steady state. When it has reached, then the work of the integral controller is finished. And also, as it accumulates the error, there's a possibility that it can cause a huge overshoot. Like if it's accumulating a lot of error, and yes, this integral control has also a constant called Ki. And see, it's accumulating the error, and that too is large. And if the Ki is also large, then both will multiply. It will result in a large quantity, so it may cause an overshoot. As you can see here, it's causing similarly, like the circuit is made up of some resistance capacitance, so they take some time to charge it. So there's some slow growth, and that's why the error in the beginning is large, so it's kind of overshooting here. Then the error is negative, so it's moving down, and now the error is positive, so it's moving up. You got this right? And similarly, by oscillating at after a long time, like after a certain time, it will reach the steady state. Okay, like here it's oscillating. Now the error has reduced a bit. Here also it has, the error is less than the previous one. Here the error is again less than the previous one. Similarly, doing so, the error will come to 0. Okay.
Okay.
The Ki, what is the Ki doing here, ma'am?
Ki, see, we usually multiply everything with a constant so that we can tune it. We'll come to that later. You can understand
So
it like
actually,
are
one second,
constants.
Rishika. Actually, here's the thing. There are three kinds of uh, controllers that we are using. That is proportional, integral, and derivative, right? So you would want to like increase the effect of one kind of controller more than the other kind of controller. All right. I mean, you would need to balance these controllers so that you get a desired output. All right, that's why you keep some constants so that if I want to increase the effect of my proportional controller, I can always increase Kp. If I want to decrease its, effect on the output, I can decrease the Kp, and similar with other constants. Understood?
Can we only use just one constant?
I mean, you can, but I mean, a single constant, a linear variable, it gives pretty decent results. You'll see later. It doesn't have to be like a very complicated function.
Okay,
With
so
two
let's
variables, you will get
balance
more
it.
better results. This is the thing.
Okay. Clear now?
No, ma'am.
अच्छा क्या नहीं clear हुआ बताओ?
And why we are using Ki? See, Kp will be used as proportionality for the error in the as a correction.
See, suppose you are using Kp, right? Okay. So it is giving some steady state error. Okay. Now to remove that steady state error, you want Ki. मतलब you want integral controller. So suppose adding the integral controller is again moving the graph upwards. So what will happen now? So to make it perfect, like to make it reach the steady state error, we can increase the effect of integral controller or decrease its effect. So to increase or decrease the effect, we are using this constant. Okay.
It is just used to make the result more near the
Yeah.
expected.
Yes.
Is actually using only Kp, you can it may oscillate around some random point. All right.
Yes,
So
sir.
you might increase the Kp to get this function to oscillate around your desired point. All right. But it would overshoot error a lot. Increasing Kp by a lot, it would like there will be a lot of overshooting and it will oscillate much more, which would be difficult to control. That's why we use Ki. It ramps up the signal or ramps down the signal according to your convenience, but it also doesn't let the signal to overshoot a lot.
It just give a more control on the desired output.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Is clear now?
And KD is increased, then the altitude is decreased.
But what? We'll come to that KD thing.
We'll come to that.
Integral control is clear now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So as you can see, this integral control is taking a lot of time to reach the steady state, right? So in order to make it reach the steady state faster, like in a lower time, we use derivative control. So the use of derivative control, see, the derivative term, the slope, something slope is the derivative, right? So what it does, like if the slope, suppose if the slope is positive, then the derivative control will counteract it. Like it will try to make it negative. And if the slope is negative, then the derivative controller will try to make it positive, thus balancing it and taking it to the steady state. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Yeah, this derivative control is clear, right? Like if the slope is positive, then it will try to make it some negative sort of thing, and thus will balance it. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And one more thing, there's one drawback of this derivative control. Like, see, if some noise enters the system, by noise I mean some unwanted signal. Suppose if you are giving a unit step signal as an input, okay. Now, some other signal is also entering the system that you don't want. That is called noise. So if some noise enters the system, then this derivative control will amplify it. It will make it more larger, larger, larger. So this can affect the control action. So to cure this, we provide some, it is attached with the filter, like we attach it with the filters. You need not worry about that as of now. It isn't much significant. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
So clear, Diana?
Yes, ma'am.
Now this derivative control graph, see the error, the slope here is positive, right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
it's trying, huh? Yeah. So it's trying to make it here negative, and thus see it's reaching the steady state in such a short time. Got it?
Okay. Ma'am, any relation between KP, KI, and KD? Maybe.
No, there's no relation as such.
Okay.
Okay, got this?
Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So by this graph, you can observe how KP is increasing, so it's overshooting a bit. Now KI is increasing, so this also is increasing, like it's oscillating. Now KD is increasing, so it's coming to the steady state error faster. Okay. See, KP is 1 here, so it's not overshooting that much, because the error is large though, but value of KP is also small, so it isn't much significant, right? Got this?
If KI is doing that, it enables the input as becoming a wave.
Yeah, see, the integral control.
No, basically,
Like,
basically, these oscillations occur due to the KP variable, due to the KP error, proportional error.
Yes, sir.
The function of KI is to basically using alone KP, it can, oscillate around any steady state, right? So what we do is we tune KI so that the oscillations are around the desired output. And then later the KD variable is increased, which reduces the oscillations. The magnitude of oscillations.
Yes, sir. I've got the point.
Actually, the physical significance of this differential error is basically these KP and KI errors. These act like if the error is positive or if the error is negative, they will provide correction corresponding to that. but KD checks whether the error is increasing or whether it is decreasing. And so it will provide a counter like correction. That's why these overshootings become less as KD is increased. You got that point?
So
KD increases
when we
the
operate any device, then we need some error. If we have no error, then
I mean, why would you want some error in your output device?
to make it as steady state, put in into steady state. Because proportional unit is 5, then error is 0, then device not work. No give output.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Sir, I'm telling the proportional controller is the KP into error. If error 0,
Yes.
then the uh, proportional is 0.
Yeah.
Proportional controller is 0, then output is 0.
No. This is not the output. All right. KP multiplied by error is not the output. It is basically correction to the output. Not exactly correction to the output, correction to the various parameters inside the function.
Yes,
Right. That determine the output.
okay. Sir.
Okay, so let's proceed further. This is in total the PID. Here, see, this is the summer. The set point, the desired output which we want is fed to the summer, and then the output is fed as a feedback to the summer too, and then the error is calculated from set point and process variable, and this error is fed to P, I, and D, and these PID give some output, give some signal, so that is fed to the summer, and the summer adds up all those things, and then it feeds them to the plant, and then the plant processes it and gives the final output. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the difference between a controller and the plant?
See, I told you now that car example. See, say you have a car and there's a device that controls the speed of the car. Okay. So that device,
It's
let's say the
controller.
device is X. So X is the controller here, and X is controlling what? It's controlling your car, right? So your car becomes the plant.
Plant. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Got it? Yeah. Let's take an example of PID control. So suppose you have a drone. So how will you ensure that the drone is flying at a particular height, not above it or not below it? So to ensure it, we'll implement PID in this. So suppose this is the desired height. The straight line is the desired height that you want to fly at, and see, let's say here is the ground. Okay. So now your drone is here, and you have proportional, integral, and derivative controller as of now. So now see, your drone is here, like the output of your drone is here at t is equal to 0, but the desired value is here, here. So the error is quite large, and that too when multiplied with the constant, it will lead to a larger quantity. So it kinds of overshoots. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but it's not that much as compared to the previous error. And the error becomes negative here. Okay.
It's like inertia for that proportional.
Inertia.
Uh, First it is
Like
at
see,
0.
suppose first your drone is here at ground level. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the difference between the desired height and the ground is your error. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
is the error. Okay. So that multiplied with KP gives the output, let's say the output of the proportional controller, so it will kind of overshoot.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? Huh. So now the error is negative here. Like it reached the top of the like above the desired height. So the error is negative here. So it will come down as we discussed in the proportional control, and similarly it will oscillate a bit, and it will reach a steady state. Matlab not steady state, it will have some error, steady state error. It will reach close to steady state. Okay.
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
to remove this steady state, the integral controller will come into picture. It will sum up the error over time until the steady state error is zero. Okay.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
after t is equal to 10 seconds, your uh, uh, let's say at t is equal to 10 seconds, your steady state error is zero. But that's very slow. You want a bit faster one. So you'll implement this derivative control too. This will check whether your your error is increasing or decreasing. If it's increasing, it will try to decrease it.
Decrease.
Yeah, and if it's decreasing, it's try to increase it. Okay. So similarly, it will achieve the steady state, like at a faster rate, like in a low time. It will not take much time as the time was taken in PI controller alone. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now the tuning of PID. See, those values Kp, Ki and Kd, these values are not provided to us. We have to set these values so that we obtain a better result. Okay.
Ma'am,
So setting, what?
by PID, the equator is rotate with constant omega.
Sorry, I'm not getting.
By PI, with the help of PID, the equator rotates with constant omega. That's
Yeah,
why it maintains this height.
yeah.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so these values, as I was saying, Kp, Ki, and Kd, these are not provided to us. We have to set these values so that we obtain a better result. So there's a whole process it's a recursive process. First, we set Ki and Kd equal to 0, and we keep on increasing until that process variable oscillates. Okay, so when it starts oscillating, we increase Ki until that steady state error is gone. And when the error is gone, we increase Kd so that the process variable, it quickly reaches the set point. Clear? This tuning of PID, this whole process is called tuning of PID. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Offset creation means
Offset was that steady state error we were obtaining in that proportional control. That is offset.
when KD was 0, the state.
When Ki and Kd both were 0, then also there was some offset, right? That offset was removed when we introduced the integral controller.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so got this tuning of PID?
I have a
Yes, ma'am.
question. Is the value of Ki, Kd, and Kp dependent on our desired output, or like will it be same based for different outputs, or will it change based on the output?
It will change.
See, it's dependent upon various things, like it varies according to every system as well as every output. All right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
See, you can't keep the value of Kp, Ki, and Kd for both the systems equal. It will not behave in a similar way. Like if suppose for one system you are keeping Kp as 5, Ki as 3, Kd as 2. And for another system you are keeping the same value. So the first system may achieve the steady state, but the second system may not achieve. So these vary, okay?
But
Okay.
it's not like if you want to achieve, for example, in this case, if you want to achieve the height at 150 meters, So you have to tune some other KPKD and KI. And if you want to achieve a height of, let's say, 100 meters, you don't have to tune it again for that particular value.
It
There
varies
will be
to system.
there will be some error, but it will be very minute. All right.
Okay.
So the
That's what.
same values would work. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Thank you.
Okay. So let's have some practical thing. You guys can open your MATLAB online. You all have registered, right? Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Registered.
So is there anyone who hasn't registered or getting some problem in registering? Okay, so everyone has registered. So
Ma'am, from MathWorks page, how to go to MATLAB?
you type MathWorks, there will come.
Ma'am, I have registered now.
Yeah, you registered, right?
I will register now.
Registered.
Ma'am, after registering, how do you have to open this page?
Type MATLAB online, Simulink. Type Simulink online. That. Okay.
Rishika, I think it's getting late. You should start, and we will be sending this video. So if anyone wants to, follow the steps, they can do it later on by themselves. Okay.
Okay. So when you open this Simulink, when you open this MATLAB online, you'll get an option here of Simulink. Okay, click on that. Yeah, and then click on blank model, create model. Okay.
Ma'am, we have to register with the
G-Suite
ITBD email ID.
Yes.
Yes, register with the G Suite ID. The institute has already, purchased the rights. Right.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So after opening Simulink, you might have got this page. Okay. Then we'll design a PID controller today. Okay. And we'll see like how we change the values of KP, KI and KD, and we'll observe the graph. Like how does it look? Okay. So open this library browser here. Yeah, so in commonly used block, you will find that summer thing. Okay. Right click on that and you'll get an option add block to model. Add it there. Okay. See, it's added here.
Ma'am, where to find this Simulink? I can find it actually.
You have opened MATLAB online, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a header and like at the top there's a header. You'll find Simulink somewhere there. Search it.
I'm clicking, but it's not working anything.
Double click.
It's redirect to another page.
Redirect to another page. Just a second, I'll show you. Yeah, so here, right, start using Simulink online. Click on this.
Okay.
Okay. And see here you have got Simulink. See, are you able to see?
Yeah.
Yeah, so double click on that. Okay, you got something, right?
I'm not getting this pop-up.
You'll get it, like it's quite slow on laptops, but on mine too it's a bit slow, so you'll get it. So
If you're getting some problem, we can upload a separate video for the setup. All right. So you can just follow the lecture right now.
So see, like clicking on library browser, we got this summer from commonly used blocks. Then click on sync. Here, scope. This scope, it is used to view the output. Okay. Okay, now take some input signal. Suppose we take unit step input. Just a second. Yeah, first let's take some PID. Let's say we take this PID controller, right click on this, add block to model. And let's take this transfer function. Like this transfer function will behave as a plant, like that car and the device example that I gave. So this transfer function is the plant. Okay. And this PID will control this plant. Okay. Now let's have some input. Yeah, click on sources. You'll get step input here. Right click, add block to model. Yeah. So now do all the connections. Like you find this end here, like this triangular end. Just double click on that and drag it and join here. And one more thing, this summer we'll take plus here, and the feedback will go to the negative point. So let's say you can double click on the summer and change its sign. So first we want plus, then we want minus. Then click on apply. Okay, so see now it's plus here now and minus. Same, connect PID to the transfer function, the plant, and connect this transfer function to the scope. Okay, now and we'll get a feedback from the output and connect it to the summer. Yeah, done. And now let's take some other values of transfer function. Let's say here, see, you can write here 20. You can write here 1, 10, 20. Okay. By double clicking on that, you can change its value. Then click on apply. Okay. Fine, now let's set the value of PID. Now let's have it let's say the value of P as 5. Yeah, any doubt? Okay, so let's say we use only a proportional controller. So the integral, let's say it's 0, the derivative is also 0. And I told you right there that there's a problem with derivative control, like if some noise enters, it will amplify it. So here the filter coefficient is provided. Write it as 0, let's say 1 leaf. Click on apply. Then okay. Cool. Now let's run it. Yeah, so compilation completed. Now double click on the scope. Yeah. So tell me, like we used unit step, right? So what is the desired output here?
1.
Yeah, and see, we use just a proportional controller, so there's some steady state error, like it's some 0.81, and there's a steady state error of 0.19, say. Okay.
Okay.
Got it. And now, just a second. Now let's set the value for I and D2. Now let's say we set the value of for I, not D. Okay. So let's say it's 4. And don't forget to click on apply. It won't compile. Like it will give an error. Okay. Now run it. Yeah, compiling done. Now double click on scope. Refresh it, like click on this run button, it will get refreshed. See, now when we use the I controller, it's like overshooting a bit, then coming down, then after some time, like at t is equal to say 5, it's reaching the steady state. Okay.
So we have to use trial and
It's
error.
basically a trial and error method. Okay. It's
Yes.
trial and error only. Okay. Now let's set the value for D2. Let's set it say 2. Click on apply. Okay. Now run it. Double click on scope. Run, like refresh it. Again, like there's no significant change, so we'll have to adjust it. Okay. So this is basically the tuning of PID. I'll not tell you right now, like you have to do it on your own. I'll give you some homework. Okay. You'll have to tune it. Okay, understood this all? Like all these connections, how to take all these blocks from the library browser. Got this, right?
Yes, ma'am.
When you created this model, that time I I create my account. So please tell me name of this.
Yeah, the name of these blocks.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so this is unit step. Like, see, clicking on this, you'll get the name. This is step here written, right? So this is unit step. This is summer. This is PID controller. This is the transfer function of your plant. Like, this is your plant basically. Your PID controller is controlling this transfer function, this plant. Okay. And this is scope. Here you view the output. This is for viewing the output. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Got this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I haven't tuned the PID as of now. You guys have to tune it, and then if you are getting some error, like if you are getting some problem, you can message me personally or on Discord too. Anywhere you can message me, okay? So now Naman will proceed with the kinematics lecture. Just a second, let me. Yeah, the slide is visible, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So Naman, go ahead, please.
Hello guys, I'm Naman Agarwal. I'm second year mechanical student. So let me clear one thing to you before starting this lecture. अगर अब तक आपको firm grip नहीं मिला है किसी भी ज्ञान का, तो please don't worry. You will eventually have a firm hold of it after you'll do the projects. So please don't worry at all. Okay, so I'll take next 10 minutes to explain this kinematics. So so let's start with kinematics. I hope everybody is familiar with this term as we dealt with it a lot for quite a significant amount of time in higher secondaries. So whatever I'm going to discuss up next is nothing but a brush up to your already existing knowledge with slight add-on of how we apply it. And let me tell you, we have tried as much as possible. We have tried to keep the explanations as simple as possible, avoiding laborious maths and calculations because we have softwares for that, right? So let's continue. So basically the kinematics is divided into two parts, forward and backward. And I'll explain these terms to you in a few minutes. Let me go on to the next slide. Next slide, please. Hello.
One minute. There's some problem. Yeah.
Okay. So let me come to robotic manipulator. So I hope some of you must have been fascinated by these arms and legs before coming to engineering, right? At least I was, because that was a factor at least that let me make a choice of engineering. So if so, then you have come to the right place. Believe me, Mars nurtures and pampers that geek inside you. So let's continue with the manipulators. In layman terms, you can consider this, you can call it as arms or legs or anything which makes a change or makes a difference in the environment. And formally, you can consider this definition an assembly of pairs of rigid bodies that can move with respect to one another via mechanical constraint. So I have a video snippet here which can explain this definition better. So play this video, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you see these dots are called joints. Okay, and what the rigid body you see here between between two dots are called links. Okay, and the two fingers kind of thing you see in the end is called end effector
Sir, your
technically.
screen is not visible. Sir, your screen is not visible.
Screen.
Screen is not visible to you.
Yes.
It is visible in my end.
Ruchika, can you share it again?
Yeah, I'll share it again.
No, rejoining can be.
Yeah, is it visible now?
Yes.
Is it visible, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
Yes, sir.
let me play the video again. Okay, so these dots, as I've said, is these dots are called joints, and the between these dots are rigid bodies called links. And in the end, the two finger kind of thing is called end effector technically. Okay, so yeah, and next slide, please. Yeah, so let me come to the classification. Let me come back to the classification of kinematics. So in kinematics, we have two classifications: forward kinematics and inverse kinematics. In forward kinematics, what we do is we are given with certain parameters called as joint angles, and using those parameters, using those joint angles or joint variables, we calculate the position or the coordinate of end effector, right? And reverse of that is inverse kinematics. We are given with the position or coordinate of the end effector, and we calculate the joint variables. So what is joint variable? Joint variables are nothing but angles of orientation. Let me explain you with the help of a diagram. Ma'am, can you please switch to slide 26? Forward kinematics. For this yeah, in this diagram you can see these angles, these the lines you see, a1 and a2, these are links, and the big dots and these solid dots encircled by these circles are joints, are representing joints. So what you see, this theta2 and theta1 are called joint variables. Okay, so these are basically joint variables. So let me come back to slide 25, types of joints. Let me come back to types of joints. Yeah, so we have very type of joints like spherical, revolutes, prismatic, cylindrical, helical. But these two joints, revolute and prismatic, that I've shown here, are the most prominent ones. And you will eventually, if it happens so that you come to our team, you become a member of our team, you will eventually come to know why we prominently use only these joints, because these two joints does the job actually. We don't need any other joints. So I have put a video snippet here. So can you play these videos?
Yeah.
So this is a revolute joint. You see, it is simply a connection between two links rotating. Okay, and second one is a prismatic joint, which is linear. That a link can transverse linearly with respect to another link, with respect to base link. So these are the most prominent type of joints we generally use. Otherwise, there are a variety of joints available. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, forward kinematics is going from joint variables to position of coordinates, position of end effector, coordinates of end effector. So here I have a question for you. Please, next slide, please. Yeah, I have a question for you all. It is a simple question. It is just simple transformation of axis that we studied in our high schools. So I'll give you 2 minutes to solve, and you need to find out x and y. You'll get it in terms of a2, a1, theta1, and theta2. I'll give you 2 minutes to solve this problem. Please come up with answers.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Have you got the answer?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What is the answer?
X will be A1 cos theta 1 plus A2 cos theta 1 plus theta 2, and Y will be A1 sin theta 1 plus A2 sin theta 1 plus theta 2.
Yeah, absolutely right. Okay, so you people have the knowledge. This is just a revision. So it is the kinematics is everything about this only. You have to calculate the coordinates and angles. It is really simple. So okay, for those who haven't solved, I have the solution with me as well. Next slide, please. Okay, here you can see first we calculate the coordinates of the second frame. Okay, x1 frame. We calculate the coordinates of the origin of the x1 frame, that is a1 cos theta 1 and a1 sin theta 1, and then we calculate the coordinates xy with respect to the x1 frame, that is a2 cos theta 1 plus theta 2, a2 sin theta 1 plus theta 2. And in the next step, we simply add these and we get the coordinates x and y with respect to the x0 frame. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, you can see here we have just added these two coordinates, and we have got x and y with respect to the base frame, and that is what is required, what we generally require. Okay. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we can also express the this x2 and y2 and with respect to x0 and y0 with the base frame, right? We keep the frame we keep second frame in the position of the joint 2, right? Yeah, we keep the second frame in the position of joint 2, and then we apply the similar process that we did earlier. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, coming on to the second classification, inverse kinematics. So as described earlier, inverse kinematics is the reverse of forward. We have coordinates or position of the end effector, and we need to calculate thetas or joint variables, what we call. Okay, so this is a bit tricky. Tricky in the sense when we calculate thetas, we generally encounter with more than one solution. Okay, and the acceptance of that solution entirely depends upon your call. You need to practically check whether those solutions are possible or not. For example, say for a particular revolute joint, you have set a particular angle for a revolute joint to rotate between 0 to 40 degree, and by calculations you are getting a solution which is 50 degree. One is 50 degree and one is 30 degree. So 30 degree is lying between the range of the revolute joint, but 50 degrees out of the range. So you will have to neglect that 50 degree solution, and that solution will be called as singular solutions. So the solutions which are not accepted, the configurations which are not practical, which cannot be attained by any manipulator, is called singular solution or singular result. Okay, so I hope you have understood that twist or trick what we encounter in inverse kinematics. Have you?
Sure.
Yes, please.
We have to check practically the answers if they are feasible or not.
Yes. Yes.
Otherwise,
Right.
we cannot just solving the equations. We cannot get that.
It is similar to what we did in our high schools, right? For example, if you have a quadratic equation for length of a pipe, so generally what we do, if we get a negative result, then we neglect that, right? So length of the pipe cannot be negative. So it is similar to that. We just need to check whether that angle is feasible for that particular joint or not, right?
Yes, sir.
So it is as simple as that. Okay, so let me proceed. So this is the problem we face. We have two configurations, and it may be so possible that both the configurations are possible. Like in this figure, you can see that XY coordinate can be attained by these two configurations. So sometimes more than one solution may also be possible. So it is entirely your call, as I said. Okay, so I have a question here for you all. We have studied both forward and inverse kinematics. So my question to you is, which one do you think is most applicable? Which one do you think is mostly applied, and why? Anybody?
Inverse kinematics is, I guess, mostly applied because
Why?
we suppose we want to get a robot arm to a specific position. We know the position, but we don't know at what angles we want the arms to be.
Absolutely, absolutely right. So you're on the right track. Okay, so next slide, please. Yeah, so these are a few laws that I don't think I need to explain these. These are few laws we use to calculate variables in inverse kinematics. So law of cosines is one, and then we have applied Pythagoras theorem as well. X square plus y square is equal to b square. So using such simple laws, we can calculate joint variables. Okay, so you may get more than one solution, and that depends on you to check the feasibility. Okay, next slide, please. Here I have a video snippet for you to show how we apply inverse kinematics. Okay, that's a MATLAB simulation of a single leg of our Chitrak project. You can see we have applied inverse kinematics in the sense that we first decided the trajectory of the endpoint of its leg. So we considered it to be moving in a semi-hemisphere, and we decided its trajectory, and then
It's actually
we proceeded.
semi-elliptic, Naman. Because it
It is
was a cost
semi-elliptic.
function.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. So the trajectory of the end effector, the end point of the leg is semi-elliptic. We decided that we first, and then moved on to calculate the joint variables. That is the job of the softwares, and we obviously need to apply our IQ as well to calculate. And can you play this video again?
Yeah, sure.
See, this end effector has a semi-elliptical path. Okay, yeah, that's it. So I'm done here. Any questions?